If you're making layered cardstock designs for your ScanNCut machine, you might be wondering how to get the perfect fit in your shadow box and how to make the lovely coloured backgrounds that you see in other people's craft projects. This video will show you how to do exactly that and how to measure your shadow boxes to make sure you get the perfect sizes every single time. If you're watching this video and you have a Cricut machine or a Silhouette machine instead, head to craftwithsarah.com/help. From there you can choose your particular type of machine and then see a similar video to this one, but it will be for your machine software. However, if you're using a ScanNCut with the Canvas software, you're in the right place, so let's go ahead and get started. For this video, we're going to start off simple by making a square the exact size of the frame, and then resizing the design to go in the middle and adding a white offset or border around the edge to make it stand out. Then we'll go a little bit more complicated by making this type of frame background where we've got squares underneath, which will allow you to use a pattern paper but still have your design perfectly visible thanks to the squares underneath. And that type of design is really simple to do, but it looks effective with all different types of colours and design. Here are a few examples from some of the free flower pot SVGs available on my website. So you can go from being really dark and dramatic, like this one, to more simple and bright and colourful, like this one. And then, once you've mastered that, you'll be able to do things like add extra details and embellishments, for example, these gemstones, or be more adventurous with your cutouts. For example, on this one, I've taken all of these hearts out to show the colour underneath. And you can combine it with extra images, like this senior down the side, or even combine the techniques. For example, on this one, I've done the offset layer and the squares, and then I've combined it with a scalloped edge square for a little bit of extra fun. But if you want to go one step further and make backgrounds like this, where you combine loads of images together into one, keep watching until the end of this video and I'll show you where you can find information on how to make gorgeous shadow box backgrounds like this one. Either ones where all of your details are glued together to make a flat style background, or how to turn your backgrounds into effective shadow boxes where all of the different layers are stuck with foam squares to make it really 3D. I love how this one turned out. And the best thing is, you're not just limited to shadow boxes. It works for greetings cards too. More information on that at the end, but for now, let's jump into making our first shadow box background. First up, you need to measure the size of your frame so you know how big to make your design in the software. I've got this shadow box design. This is a ribber frame from IKEA. I don't think they make them anymore. I've had this quite a long time. But any kind of shadow box will do. Or if you're using a regular frame, such as just a normal photo frame, you can use that too, but you might just need to leave the glass out. Otherwise, there won't be enough space for your layered design to pop out. The deeper shadow boxes are nice because you've got all of the space in here for your designs to pop out. I've already taken the glass out of this one just so it doesn't reflect all my camera lights. Turn your frame over and open up all of the little tabs around the edges. And then we'll take out the back. If you're doing a shadow box, you'll probably find that it's also got a spacer inside, which looks something like this. You can use either the spacer or the back of the frame to measure. Do it on the spacer first. I'll show you both ways. So we're going to go from one side all the way to the other. Line your ruler up so it's straight. And then this one is 9 inches. You can measure in centimetres if you prefer. I'm going to do mine in inches. So you can also, if your frame doesn't have a spacer or if you just prefer it this way, you can measure along the back instead. Line the ruler up right against that bottom line so you know it's straight, because if you do it a little bit wibbly wobbly, you won't get an accurate reading. So I'm lining that up, and 9 inches, exactly the same as it should be because they both came out the same frame. So that is the size I need to remember when I go into my cutting machine software. Now that you've measured your frame, open up the Canvas Workspace software on your computer. Check your measurements are in the correct format, which you can do by going to Display and then Unit and choose either inches or millimeters. I'm using inches. Then load the SVG file that you want to put in the middle of the frame. To do that, go to File and then Import from your computer. If you're using one of my newer files or one of the older ones that I've since formatted to make them easier to work with on ScanNCut machines, then you'll see a list of folders with different numbers down them. For ScanNCut, the easiest one to choose is the one in the 04 layers separated by color folder, and then the file that starts SVG in the file name. If you're using one of my older designs or one that hasn't been formatted in that same way, then instead of seeing all of those different numbers with the folders, you'll just see all the files in one folder of their own. In that case, you can still use the file, just make sure you choose the one that starts SVG. I'm going to go into Layer Separated by Color and then choose the SVG. And for some reason, my files load all in black in Canvas Workspace. This isn't just limited to me. I did test out files from other designers too, and theirs loaded also in black. So I think it's something to do with the software versus something to do with my specific files. But unfortunately, it does mean that you'll need to add the colors back in and also to place the layers one on top of the other to make it easier to size, to know how big or small to put it in the frame. I have a separate video and tutorial that goes through how to do that. To find it, go to craftwithsarah.com/help. Choose ScanNCut from the list of machine options, and then look at the tutorial called Importing SVGs. I'm going to go ahead and pause this video, get all my colour added back in and put the layers one on top of the other, and then we can start taking a look at how to size it all to fit inside the frame. Here are all my layers coloured, and I've placed them one on top of the other to make the finished picture. Drag a box around everything and right-click and group. That means you can now click and resize and everything will change in proportion. Move that over to the side for now. Go into Shapes and choose a square, and then you can close out of the Shapes menu. Give it a fill colour. I'm going to go for just a random light colour and press OK. And then I prefer to take off the stroke, which is the outline. So to do that, you can just click it down to 0 and that black line will go away. But if you prefer to keep that on, it's completely up to you. Make this the same size that you measured the back of the frame. To do that, click into the Edit option, which is the second one down on the right-hand side. And then you can change the width and the height. So mine is 9 by 9 inches. Click the square, then right-click and Arrange Center Back. That will put it underneath your layered design so you can move that on. At the moment, this would be very, very small, so let's resize it. When you're resizing, if you're doing it by clicking and dragging, make sure you choose the corners. Otherwise, if you choose the sides, then you'll stretch it or squish it out of proportion and it won't look good. Whereas if you drag the corners, you see the width and height change in proportion, so it still looks lovely no matter what size you make it. Don't put it too close to the top or the bottom of your square. For example, I wouldn't do something like this. That's because the very edges of your square will end up resting on the back of that spacer in your frame, so you can't have any of your layered design touching those bits that will be on the spacer, otherwise the back of your frame won't go on properly, and also you'll jam the top and bottom of your design in and you won't be able to see it. Likewise, if you're using a frame that's got quite a chunky front to it, for example, my shadow box design does have a very thick frame, then you probably again won't see the very edges because they'll be covered up by that frame overlapping into the gap. So instead, I'm going to go maybe 7 inches. No, that's a little bit small. 7.5. And put that in the middle. I'm planning on using a patterned paper to cut my square from, and I already know what paper I'm going to choose, and it's very busy and detailed and lots of colours in that design. So it's going to make the layered design look a little bit lost. It will blend in with everything that's going on, and you won't be able to see it very well. It won't have much of an impact. To correct that, you can add a tiny little border around the outside of the design to help it pop out from the background and just look a little bit more visually impressive. This is, of course, a completely optional step, but if you want to do that, click on your design and then go into the Layers panel and then click on the very bottom layer. So mine is down here. And with that selected, go into the Edit panel, scroll all the way down to the bottom, and then press Offset. Offset is how you can make a border around the edge of a layer. I'm going to go a little smaller with perhaps 0.1 inch, and then everything else I'll leave as is, but you can play about with those settings if you want to, and then press OK. You see now I've got a black outline around the edge. I can click that, or if it's easier, go into the Layers panel down here and you can click it in there. And then I'm going to give it a fill color of white. I'll cut mine from white and then take off the stroke. And then right click, arrange, and send backwards to put it underneath all the layers of the layer design. It's a bit hard to see because of that yellow. I'll change this to a slightly brighter colour so you can see. That pink wasn't a great colour to choose because that's a bit too similar to the pinks in the actual design. Go for blue. Alright, so now you can see what it's done. It's made that other layer that will cut from white cardstock, and I'll glue that underneath the layered design to create the border, and that will help differentiate it from the background so it's easier to see and it doesn't blend in so much. Here's how it looks when it's cut out, both with and without that offset layer, so you can see the difference that it makes. If you're brand new to cutting cardstock with your ScanNCut machine and you'd like a little bit of a helping hand on how to do that, including how to send all the different colours to your machine, head to craftwithsarah.com/help, choose ScanNCut from the list of machine options, and then there's a separate tutorial in there that shows the full process of getting things cut from cardstock on your machine. Next, let's look at a different way of making shadow box backgrounds to add mats and layers to draw focus into the design. This time I'm using my free generic flower pot design, which is available on my website, and I've already added in all the colours to this and stacked the layers one on top of the other, and I've got my 9 by 9 inch square, which will be the bottom of my frame. Alright, so let's make some smaller squares to go in the middle. Go into Shapes and choose a square and give it a fill colour. I'm going to go for, actually I want the same purple as that, so I can double click on the purple, click into the fill box at the top, drag your mouse over the code to select it and then right click and copy, and then on the square go into the fill box, click a random colour, and then right click and paste. And then let's take that off. And then this one I'll make a bit smaller. Let's try perhaps 7 inches. I'm going to go a little bit smaller. Let's try 6.5. My idea for this is that there'll be a pattern paper on the very background, and then this will be a dark colour to act as a border. And then I'll put a smaller one inside. I might even go slightly smaller still, maybe 6 inches, because I want to be able to see a lot of my pattern paper in that background. And then right click, copy, right click and paste. Change the colour of this one. I'm going to cut this from a very light purple. I don't want it to be cut too dark, otherwise the design won't show up very well. And then make this a little bit smaller, perhaps 5 by 5, and that will go in the middle. So now we've got 3 squares that will be cut out to make the background. Drag a box around all of them and go into the Edit over on the right hand side, and then align objects horizontally and vertically to put them all one in the middle. And now we can size the layered design. If it's appearing underneath the squares, right click, arrange, bring to front. You can either size it so that it fits perfectly inside your shapes like that, but what I prefer to do for a bit more impact is to spread it out a little bit so it goes a little bit over on the top and the bottom. That's just my personal preference because it means the design can be bigger And then your eye really gets taken into it because of how it's breaking the lines on the top and the bottom. And then this would be ready to cut out. Super simple. Before we move on to the next step, which is an optional way to make it easier to know where to stick the squares once they've been cut out so that everything stays perfectly straight and centered, I just wanted to show you a little bit of a resizing tip if you're working with a rectangular frame instead of a square one. I've made this rectangle here, the green one, which is A4 size, which is our paper size here in the UK, and then copied it and changed the colour. If you just resize it using the corners to make your mats and layers, you'll find that as you resize, it goes a little bit out of proportion. You can see here the gap at the top and the bottom is much bigger than the gap on the left and the right. And if that's the effect you're going for, that is absolutely fine, but I will show you a way to make it so that all the gaps are even. But before we do that, let's just make one more copy. Make it a little bit smaller as well. It becomes a bit more obvious when you're doing this smaller one in the middle. So my gap on the top and the bottom is bigger than the left and the right, which just doesn't look altogether very neat in my opinion. I think it looks a little bit nicer when it's all the same. So to do that, when you copy and paste the actual size of the first one, instead of resizing it by dragging the arrows, use the width and the height instead. This is under the edit menu here. And resize it to take the same number off of each side. Untick the box that says maintain aspect ratio. You don't want that ticked for this option. And then if I take 2 inches off the width and 2 inches off the height and put it in the middle now, let's do it properly. Where are we? There we go. Now the gap around all 4 sides is exactly the same. And then we can do the same for the one in the middle. Let's take 1/2 inch off of each side. 5.8 and 9.2. And then once again, we've now got the same amount of gap around all of those sides. So that's a nice, easier way of doing it if you do want to make all of your gaps even on a rectangular frame. But now let's jump back to take a look at how we can improve our backgrounds to make it easier to stick them together once they're cut out. One thing that I personally really struggle with when gluing together things like the Shadowbox background is getting things exactly in the middle and also getting them straight. I'm terrible at sticking things in a straight line. If you don't have that problem, then you're very lucky and you can cut out your project exactly as it's looking in Canvas Workspace right now. But if you're like me, then there's something you can do. It only takes a couple of minutes, but it will guarantee you stick everything perfectly straight and centered every time. And that is to add dashed cut lines to the squares that are going to have a smaller square stuck on top of it. I'm not sure you can see too well, but hopefully you can see I've got little dashes along all of the sides of my square. And that means when I stick the smaller one on, I can line it up so it's touching those dashed lines on all 4 sides. And because the dashed lines are the same size as this square, and I've positioned it all in Canvas Workspace so it's centered, I know that if I line that up, it will be straight and perfectly in the middle. Let's take a look at how to do that. Let's set up those dashed cut lines to make it easier to see where to stick all of the squares. If you're like me and you find it hard to stick things exactly in the centre or to stick them perfectly straight, this will definitely help you out. Move my flowers over to the side for now, and then open the Layers panel by clicking it over here on the right. And for now, I'm going to go over the lighter square, my very middle one, and hide it by clicking the eye. So I've just got these 2 for now. And then make a copy of this, right click and copy, and then right click and paste. And then this will be my dashed cut lines. So to change it, go into the fill box and choose transparent. And then we've got our stroke. Let's set that to 1. You can make it whatever colour you like, it doesn't matter. And then in here, change it to the dashed lines with the either the biggest gap between them or the next one down. So either one of those two. I'll go for that one. And then you can have a look and see how it's going to appear. If we change it to the other one, we'll get less cuts with bigger gaps. I think that one's actually better. I'm going to use that one. The reason for using them with big gaps is if you chose one like that, for instance, the gaps between the lines will be so small, this will actually end up looking like a perforated line, and it'll be very weak on the cardstock. You might find that you accidentally pop it through, a bit like tearing off a scratch card or a lottery ticket, instead of just using it as a guide. So we're going for the big gaps like that. Drag a box around all of those, and then go back to Edit, and align them so that they're all perfectly centered. And then go back to Layers. And for now, I'm going to hide the purple one. So I've just got these two selected. Drag a box around both of them. Right click and group. Now when I send this to my ScanNCut, it will do those lines in the middle of this square. And then put this back to the bottom by right click, arrange, center back. So now it's back down the bottom of the Layers panel. Let's bring the next one back on. So I want my purple and the lighter colour. Everything's got a bit out of a line now. So we'll align it all back in the middle. And then we need to copy and paste that one. This one I'll change because I know this is already lined up. And you won't be able to see black lines. Let's go for purple. Still can't see that. Oh, because it's still set to 0. Let's put that up to 1. And now there is the dashed lines on the purple. Back in the Layers panel, click the purple. Press Ctrl on the keyboard and choose your new dashed lines, which for me is my one above it. And then we'll right click and group. So now these are grouped. So we'll do those dashed lines in the middle there. Drag a box around everything and back under Edit, we'll align it all again. You might need to move stuff about in the Layers panel if they're appearing in the wrong order. Then that can go back. Arrange, bring to front. And there we go. This would now be ready to center cut on the ScanNCut machine. Don't forget to save your project first before you start cutting. I've just exported my design to my ScanNCut machine using a USB cable. You can do it via any of the other ways that you can send your designs as well. So let's retrieve it. Don't think I pressed that right. There we go. And get that one. There's my design. I've actually already cut out the flower pot, so I'll just delete that one. I just want to show you how it works, so I will do just these two and hope they're going to fit on the same bit of card, which they will just about. Alright, so I'm just going to cut those two and then we'll see how it looks with those dashed lines. You can see if you move it about, those dashed lines still stay exactly where we want them to in the middle of that square. So you don't need to worry if you are moving things about. And I'm actually going to save my cardstock and just cut that one. It's only really to show you how it does those dashed lines and how it ends up looking. So I'm going to go ahead and get that one cut and then show you what it looks like. Here are my two smallest squares. I've cut them from random colours just to show the effect. It's probably going to be quite hard to pick up on my camera. I'm not sure if you can see it, but there are little dashed lines all around where the ScanNCut cut that dashed line. I can see it quite clearly in the flash, but I'm not sure it's actually picking up on the camera, which is a shame. Maybe if I hold it that way round. Oh, I think you can see it now. There we go. So there's those dashed lines. So it means when I've got my next bit of card, I can line it up, match up those dashed lines on all four sides, and then I know when I glue this, it will be perfectly in the middle and it will be straight. So I'm going to have exactly the same amount of space around all of those sides, and it will look lovely and uniform and organised inside the frame. So I'm going to go ahead and get this finished and cut out with my real colours, and then we'll see how it looks when it's all put together, as well as some other framing ideas. Here's how my finished design turned out with my background, and then my two squares in the middle, and then my layered design stuck on top. It would now all be ready to go in the frame, and gluing all of these squares was super easy thanks to the little corners to know where to put it. Here are another couple of examples to show how changing up the backgrounds can really change the overall effect. So for this one, I've used a very dark, moody background to draw the eye in. For this one, I've added some sticky gemstones in the middle and the corners, so you can, of course, embellish these however you like. And then finally, super simple with some bright colours. But that's not all you can do. Once you get more confident at making your shadow box backgrounds, you can then add extra details, such as playing about with different shapes. On this one, I've added a scalloped square behind my main glitter square to give that little bobbly edge, and I've combined it with the offset that we did for the birthday flower pot to show an extra little border around my St. Patrick's Day flowers. You can play about with cutting out details. So on this one, I've cut lots of little hearts out of the square here to show the colour underneath, just to add a little bit more visual interest. And you can even combine it with other images, such as this one, where I found an image to cut to go down to finish off the design. You can also play about with things like adding names or dates to make a truly personalised shadow box. But that's not all you can do. You can up-level this a whole load more with custom backgrounds. Here's how. Here's another look at some of those detailed frames I showed you at the beginning of this video. We've got the one where all of the parts are glued together, and then this one, which was in the frame itself at the beginning, which uses foam squares on all of the background details to make it layered all the way around. If you'd like to know how you can combine images or SVGs to make your own custom backgrounds for any theme or occasion, head to craftwithsarah.com/join to check out the Craft with Sarah Premium membership. Joining the membership gives you access to all of my papercraft classes that are exclusive to that membership. A new class is released every single month, and for April 2025, that is this class on how to make these detailed, beautiful backgrounds. You'll also get other amazing benefits from joining the membership too. For example, design credits added to your account every single month that you can use to download the premium SVGs from my shop at no additional cost. You'll also be able to enter member-only challenges on the website, submit design requests if you have any suggestions for what you'd like to see coming up, and it will remove all the display advertising from the website, so you won't get any of those annoying ads pop up anymore. But let's talk a little bit about this class. As with all of the classes that come as part of the membership, they're all recorded 3 separate times, once using Cricut Design Space, once using Silhouette Studio, and once using Canvas Workspace for ScanNCut machines. That means that if you're using one of those types of machines, you can follow along in your specific machine's software. So these classes are not Cricut specific. I have recorded them in different softwares to make them accessible to a much wider range of machines. As part of this class, you'll see how to take the images, and yes, all of these are included as part of the class too, and create the background. First up, we'll do this flat version. So we'll add them all together, and then we'll see how to do things like extend shapes down to fill in a space, how to join shapes together to make a repeating pattern, and how to take little parts from one design and move them to use them in your backgrounds. Then I'll show you how you would cut this out and stick it all together. So for this one, as I've said, most of these bits are glued, which means the background looks fairly flat. I only used my foam squares for the little details, such as the bushes, the flowers, and the sun. If you want to go even further and make a more dimensional shadow box, so this is more like the traditional shadow box SVGs that you might be using already, then there's a part 2 included in the class that shows how to turn this into this. This one is put together differently. It's a little bit hard to show on video, but for this one, instead of gluing all of the background, the rainbow layer is raised up with foam squares, the hill has a second layer of foam squares, the grass at the bottom has a third layer, and then the purple frame is glued on top. Which means you've got lots of beautiful dimension in here, and it looks much more realistic in the flesh compared to this version, because all of that depth of the foam squares draws your eye in and helps add to the visual perspective of making the rainbow look like it's further away than everything else on the frame. If you've ever wanted to design your own shadow boxes, this class gives you a great head start into the process of doing that. And you don't have to use flowers and rainbows and clouds. You can use the same steps shown in the class to design frames for any occasion using any SVGs that you have. So what are you waiting for? Head to craftwithsarah.com/join to find out more about the membership. Or if you are already a member, head to craftwithsarah.com/classes. Make sure you're signed into your account, and then you'll be able to enroll in not only this class, but all of the other classes included on the site. There are only a few there at the moment, but remember, a new class is added every single month, and each class will be recorded for Design Space, Silhouette Studio, and ScanNCut Canvas Workspace. If you have any suggestions for future classes, let me know in the comments. But for now, we're going to finish up this video on designing our shadow box backgrounds. I hope that you enjoyed this video on how to perfectly size and frame your cardstock projects that you've made with your ScanNCut machine. If you have enjoyed it, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to my YouTube channel for lots more ScanNCut tutorials. To watch all of the videos from this beginner series on making cardstock designs with a ScanNCut, head to craftwithsarah.com/help. From there, choose the ScanNCut option to see all the available tutorials, and I'll be adding more throughout the year too. If there's something in particular you would like to see, leave me a comment on this video on YouTube. But for now, thank you so much for watching. Bye!